Hi there, welcome to 90% Knitting. This is episode 372. I'm Lisa, also known as Fiber Nymph, and today is Sunday, August 15th. How are you? I know it's probably been a couple of weeks since I did a regular episode. I did do a little shop update episode after my last regular episode, so you might have seen that. And if you did, and if you shopped at the last couple of updates, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I also introduced my new club, which is the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club, which signups for that did start back on the 8th, and they are still ongoing. So if you're interested in a 3-month club that will ship in September, November, and January, I will talk a little bit more about that in the shop news segment, but you can also find information about that in the shop listing for the club memberships, because I'm doing this club sign up through a shop listing. Lots of options for you, and I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to start dyeing for it. Anyway, I did record this entire podcast yesterday. And then I had the window open because it's been so hot and humid. Thankfully today the humidity has decreased. It's lovely. But I couldn't have the air conditioning on while I was recording, so I had the window open, and partway through the podcast, the guy from the cable company came because we had a big storm on Friday night that totally fried our cable box, and I guess the cable boxes of a couple of different people. Lightning must have struck the line. Anyway, so they were coming to replace the cable box, which was fabulous because we didn't think they were going to be able to come till Tuesday. But in the meantime, like right in the middle of the podcast, there was all this background noise going on, so I thought I could filter it out, but I couldn't edit it out. So I'm redoing it today, and hopefully things will go more smoothly. I don't know what Bill's doing. He's probably downstairs and he could make some noise, but we're just going to go with it. I am in my bedroom again. Slightly different angle. I'm trying to minimize shadows, so let's just go with it. I have show notes, so I'm looking at them. Oh, I mentioned the last time when I did that shop update video, I mentioned that I was working with a new laptop. I got a new laptop, which was very exciting. I've needed one for quite a while, and I've just been putting it off because I hate the process of having to transfer things to a new laptop and get all the software up and running and everything, and it is sort of a pain, but I'm very thankful to have the new laptop that is reliable and works much faster than my old one. I'm still working on a learning curve with some things. So I'm trying to rely on my old laptop for a couple of things that I haven't been able to do on my new laptop. And then yesterday, my old laptop decided to give me a screen that said, hard drive not installed. I'm like, oh, that does not sound good at all. So after playing with that for a bit, I did get it to reboot. But that's been a fun adventure this past week. I have the feeling that old one is definitely on its last legs. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, all that to say, processing the video, that short video, went so fast on the new laptop. So I'm really, really hopeful that it's going to be so much easier to process my full 90% knitting videos from now on. That would be amazing, because that's part of what takes me so long in doing these podcasts, is the editing and the processing and compressing and all that stuff. So there's that. What else is going on? I am doing a shop update this week, which again I will talk more about in the shop news segment, but just giving you a heads up that that will be happening. It's going to be on Tuesday at noon, which I know is a really weird time for me to do a shop update, but there's a reason for it. If you've been following along and you know the dilemma of the fact that my husband has like weeks and weeks of vacation time that he needs to take before he retires next year, but his job is such that he has no time to take any of the vacation because there is nobody else to do his job. So we're basically just grabbing vacation time as he can fit it in, and a lot of times that's last moment, and we are at that point again where it looks like he's going to be able to take the week after next off. And so we are manically, and by we I mean mostly me, planning a trip. It'll be a motorcycle trip. Yeah, we're planning a trip that we're not 100% sure we're going to be able to take. But if we are able to take it, that means we'll be leaving on Saturday the 21st and then be gone through that whole next week. So I had a shop update planned to do on Friday, but that would make no sense for me to do a shop update the day before we would be leaving on a trip. And so I wanted to do it earlier in the week and have time to ship things out before I go. Obviously, the shop will remain open if we are away, but things will not get shipped until after I get back. So anyway, again, a little bit more about that later on in the podcast, but those are the things that are going on in my life this past week, and you know, it's just never dull. Let's start. I have a finished object, which is very exciting because I haven't had many of those lately. I finished my Arika cowl that I showed you last time. The knitting was mostly done. I had to finish off like the last inch of this, if you remember. Okay, so first of all, it's the Arika cowl by Jane Richmond, and the yarn I used was Knitter's Brewing Company, their Sock-aholic Brewski, which is worsted in the Woolly Friends colorway. And if you remember, I started this, I was working on it when we were on our Michigan trip, like driving up to Michigan for the canoe trip. And I mostly finished it, but I bound off and realized this part, the lacy part, was just a little shorter than I wanted it. And so I tinked back, took my bind off and knit another inch or so. And then once I got home, I looked at it and I decided to go a little further, finished it finally after I showed it to you last time, bound off, and then I blocked it, because you block it so that this first section, this ribbed section here, is what you knit first. You keep that straight, you don't stretch that out. And then you pin out this lace section so that it's in this triangular shape when it's blocking. You pin it to make that shape. And then once it's blocked out, you seam this end of the ribbed section to the far end of the lace section. You're not supposed to stretch the ribbing when you're seaming it. It's supposed to stay pretty close together, and you're only supposed to seam the knit columns. I don't know that I did that perfectly well, but it's fine. It looks fine to me. Anyway, so you do that, and here I'll try it on. Do that, and then you add all the fringe. And you know, to be honest, if you know me, I was all about the fringe, which is why I did this project. So now let me see if I can sort of stand up here a little bit, and there it is. I think this is super cute. I really, really like it. I did not put as much fringe on it as the pattern called for. The pattern called to put the fringe all along the outside edge, including the back. I didn't really see a reason to do that, so I didn't. You're supposed to space them about 1 inch apart, and it's 6 strands. So you're using 3 strands of yarn and pulling it through so it's double. So there's 6 strands in each of these little fringy bits. I think I spaced mine out a little further than 1 inch. And they are not even. One side has more than the other. I didn't care. I think it looks fine. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. And what was interesting was, you may remember I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this in just 1 skein of yarn, which the pattern said you could. And in fact, I did. This is all I had left of my first skein of yarn. So I have a full other skein that I did not use. I think I'm going to use it for a hat. I don't know what hat. Matter of fact, part of me wants to see if I could make a hat and do it like kind of like a slouchy beanie using this sort of lace pattern in it, this eyelet lace. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to hold on to it, and I may use it during the Down Cellar Studio pigskin party this year, because Knitter's Brewing Company is usually a sponsor, so I would be using sponsor yarn. Let's get you some extra points. I will talk a little bit more about the pigskin party at the end of the podcast as well, or during the shop section. So anyway, so this is my finished object this week. I'm really happy with it. I highly recommend this pattern. I think it would make a great gift knit if you have somebody in your family or in your friends, whatever, in your life who likes cowls and likes that bandana style and is into fringe. I think it would be perfect because it's a really quick knit and it was very enjoyable. So 2 thumbs up. Again, that was the Arika cowl by Jane Richmond. Okay, so that was the only finished object. Next up, I worked on a couple of things that you have already seen. So, you know, my last several episodes I've showed you, but I've been still working on them, so I'm going to show you again. The first of which is my Crochet Tube Cowl, which I'm just making. It's not a pattern. I'm making it up as I go. So you have seen this before. I've added quite a bit to it though. So here we go. Here's the beginning. You will remember, maybe, or if you haven't seen it before, let me tell you, I'm using all Legacy Fiber Artz yarn. I had 2 mini sets from them, and then I had a full skein that had a mini with it. So I had a total of 11 minis. I'm using, or my goal is to use 9 of those 11. There's 2 that I don't feel quite go with these colors as well as I would like them to. One of them is the one that came with the full skein, which is just sort of a semi-solid color. It's not speckled or variegated or anything like the rest of these are. And then the other one is largely pink, so it would go, but it's got this very light minty green, and even though this one does have green in it, it's a totally different green, and I'm just not feeling that one. So I'm probably not going to use that. I don't think I would need 9 to do this whole cowl because it's going to get super, super long. So anyway, I I chained 100 stitches at the beginning, and then started doing single crochet, and then I switched to single crochet through the back loop, and I did that for a section, and then I'm just going back and forth very randomly, no particular number of rows. So I have a section that's through the back loop, and then again single crochet, and then a through the back loop section and single crochet. And every time I finish a mini, I'm doing a little segment of the full skein of yarn in there. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the one I was in the middle of the last time you saw it. So I finished the 4th mini, did the 5th one, and then I came to these 2. This is actually 2 separate minis, and you can see where, oh, that's interesting, because in person I can't see that transition place very well. So I think that's interesting how well you can see it here where I'm striping. Whatever, when it's on you really won't be able to see it here. Well, look at this side. This really bold red and purple one, I wasn't sure I was going to use this one, but then I thought, you know what, why not? I mean, I really like the colors, and even though it's a big change from all the rest of these, I thought it could be kind of fun to have it in there just as a, you know, something different. So I decided to stripe it in with one that's very, very pink and very similar to the full skein. And I thought, well, that one's not going to really show up super differently, you know, up against that full skein. So that's why I'm just striping those 2, and I kind of like that, that look. So whenever it's done, okay, I've got it all wrapped up here. You know, when I'm wearing it, and this is all wrapped around, you know, I just think you'll see those stripes, and it'll just kind of be a fun little variation on what's going on with the rest of it. So anyway, I'm still really enjoying doing this. I'm using a D hook on this, and this is their Steel Toes base. All of the yarn is Steel Toes, which is a fingering weight base. And every round I'm randomly placing a bead. I think these are 6/0 beads. I'm not really sure. They were out of their original packaging. But yeah, I'm just using monofilament, a piece of monofilament to add the bead to the yarn. So there's just random beads all around, and I think it's fun. And it's a no rules kind of thing, which is why I'm just doing whatever I feel like doing as I do it. So I have 2 more minis. Is that right? I don't know. I've lost count. I'm using 2 minis, and this is the last one that I have in the bag that I will probably use along with the rest of my full skein, which I will obviously not use the rest of this, but there will be a segment of this between the striped section and that other mini. So anyway, it's coming along. It's not, there's no deadline for this. I usually work on this when I'm out at the dining room table in the mornings, having coffee with Bill when he's having breakfast. So it's getting worked on consistently, but it'll get done whenever. It's fine. So that's all I have to tell you about that one, I think. The other one is also a crochet project, which you've seen, and this is a Good Vintage Cardi. The pattern is by Fran Morgan. And the last time you saw it, I was on, I think I was on the armhole decreases. I don't remember if I had them finished or not, but I have since finished them, and so now I'm doing the part of the top where you're just working straight up for 8 rows. So this lime green was the last decrease row I did. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 8 straight rows before I believe you start doing some neckline shaping. And then I'll be done with the whole body of it. So here it is. I know it's hard to really see. It's going to be so fun and colorful, and I'm really enjoying it. So there it is. Oh my gosh, I just looked at it in the screen and I thought, is that an error? I thought I did 2 colored rows next to each other like here by this radioactive toxic green and the pink, but there is an actual row of the natural color in there. So the yarn I'm using for this is my Mountain Tweed BFL in a whole bunch of different mini colors. My Mountain Tweed minis now are Mountain Tweed Merino, not Mountain Tweed BFL. I started this back when I was still using the BFL, but if you order them now, they're Mountain Tweed Merino minis. They look the same. It's just a different makeup of the fiber or of the yarn from my supplier. I can get them already in minis. I could not get the BFL ones already in minis, so it just made sense to switch. I don't really have anything exciting to tell you about this project other than the fact that I am just sort of working away at it. I try to put a couple of rows in it. I told you last time that I'm doing both fronts and the back together. You know, I'm doing, you know, left front, back, right front, and then back and forth, whereas the pattern has you doing all of one front, then I think all of the other front and all of the back or something. And I thought that was kind of silly since I want to keep everything even and I have less of a chance of messing up. So that's working fine for me. I did take a couple of days this week and I caught up on all my end weaving in, because there are a lot of ends to weave in this sweater, obviously, with all these color changes. So I am caught up on my ends, so I will not have all those to do at the very end of the project. Yeah, so it's coming along. That's also being worked on a D hook. What's the hook I tend to use when I'm working on fingering weight projects in crochet? And I don't really have anything else to tell you about that other than hopefully I'll be working on sleeves by the time you see it next time. We'll see. Of course, that all depends on when I record next, because obviously that is not something I would be taking with me on vacation on a motorcycle trip, because I hardly ever work on projects when I'm on vacations anyway. We know this. So, what else? The only other thing that I kind of am working on, and this is a new cast on, I haven't put a ton of time into it. I just haven't had a ton of time to put into it. It's a new pattern by Sarah Jordan, and it's called Mammillaria. Isn't that a cute hat? It's a bubble hat design, so the stitch pattern is this bubble stitch in here, and then she's added this really innovative pleated top up here for the decreases. I can't wait to get to that. I think that's going to be so interesting. Anyway, Sarah designed this using Bounce, my Bounce base, in a colorway that I did up for anybody who finished all of last year's monthly makes program. This was the exclusive colorway for them, and it was called Keep On Going. So it's not a colorway in the shop, but obviously you can do it with any self-striping. But that's how the hat looks. I just think it's adorable. And here is the one that I'm doing. I'm doing this also, oh, I've lost stitches, hang on. I'm also doing this on my Mountain Tweed BFL base, which I have to admit is one of my favorite bases of mine. I just like tweed. Anyway, I'm doing it in one of the new colorways that I had in the shop last update, and that is River Rocks. So that is the River Rocks colorway. And as you can see, I'm not very far. I'm just on the brim. This has a folded in brim, so you knit the first several rounds, and then you do a purl stitch for a turning round, and then you knit up, and then eventually you will fold that up and catch those stitches. So that will be the brim. Hopefully that made sense. I don't usually do brims like that. Matter of fact, I'm not sure if I've ever finished a hat that had a brim like that, so this will be interesting to see if I can do it well. I know I've done that technique for other things, but I'm not sure I've ever done it on a hat. I've done it like at the bottom of sweaters, I think. I don't know. Anyway, so then you do that and then you go into that bubble stitch. And I've really wanted to do a project that uses a bubble stitch. I have watched Stephen West's video that he did on bubble stitch for, he's got several patterns out that use that. And I hadn't intended to watch it. It was just one of those days I had YouTube on, and you know, like one video would end and YouTube would just throw up another one, and that was one of the ones it had on. And I thought, that's really cool, because I think I thought it was probably a more difficult stitch. And it's not. It doesn't look like it'll be very difficult at all. So I wanted to do something, and so this was a good opportunity. And then Sarah has an entire page of this pattern dedicated to a tutorial on how to do that pleated top. So she's got pictures and a description, and it doesn't look super complicated, so fingers crossed I can do that without too much trouble. I did go down a needle size for the brim from what she called for. I think she called for a 1.5. Oh no, she called for a 1 and a 2. I am actually using a 1, but I'm only going to go up to a 1.5 for the rest of the hat because I know fingering weight yarns and me work better at that needle. So anyway, that's that. That's really the only other thing I have worked on. I did start a sock just because I needed a mindless project to work on one day. I forget what I was doing, something on the computer, and it's not very far. It's just going to be a shorty sock, so I'll show that to you some other time once I've actually made progress. Maybe I will take that with me if we end up going on this trip. That would be a good project to take with me, because I wouldn't have to think about it and I wouldn't have to take too many other needles or anything. I could probably take this hat too, because I don't think that would be, I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. The only other thing I've worked on is something that's not knitting related, but it's stitching related, and it's just a weird little project that I've had in my mind that I wanted to do. I got the idea after seeing a piece of artwork in a magazine. I think I showed you guys the magazine. I don't remember the name of it. I'll try to look it up and put it down here. But it was a magazine about different types of artwork, and there was a project in it that had a whole bunch of buttons on this fabric, and I don't even remember what that was, like what that item was, but it gave me this idea. And so I have started stitching buttons onto this piece of fabric in an embroidery hoop. And this is going to be a series, I believe. So this is the first one, and this is just a piece of muslin, so it's obviously an off-white color, and I'm using all of these light colored buttons. I have a lot of button jars, and I have them all kind of organized by color generally. A lot of these are antique buttons. They were my grandmother's. Some of them were probably from my mother's button box or button jar or whatever bag. And so they're all divided up, and you know, I'm never ever going to use all of these buttons on projects like clothing or anything, so I thought it would be really fun to use it for this. So here's my like kind of neutral colored buttons, my light ones, and I'm just stitching them on here, and I'm trying to mix up colors and shapes, and obviously I have this bit to do. I have a couple of open areas like here and here that I don't have buttons tiny enough to go in there. I feel like you'd need really, really tiny, like buttons that would have been on like baby clothing or something to go in there. So I'm going to have to go through my stash. I have buttons in other areas too. I'll see if I have any that might work there, and if not, I guess I could look for other buttons. I mean, they don't have to be antique buttons. I'm not like being a stickler about that. If I can't find buttons though, I may do little clusters of French knots in those spots. We'll see how that might look. Just, you know, like in a off-white ivory colored sort of fabric or floss, like an embroidery floss. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just having a lot of fun with it. It's very relaxing, which I think is funny because when it comes to sewing buttons on clothing like knit sweaters and things, I do not enjoy that. And I think that has more to do with the fabric and how stretchy it is and stuff. But just sewing it on fabric like this, I've really been enjoying that. So I did most of this in one morning, and I will finish it up here soon. But then my other one, I want to do a dark one, so a dark background with some of my darker buttons. And then I want to do a third one that will be all of my bright colored buttons. I don't know what background I'll use for that. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, that's the project. So I'll have 3 of them. Although I think I only have 2 hoops this size, so I'll have to get a 3rd hoop. Unless I could do the colored one bigger. I don't know. We'll see. It's a work in progress, and I'm just planning it as I go. Actually, I'm not planning it. It's a no plan kind of project. I'm just making it up as I go along. I seem to be doing a lot of things like that lately. But anyway, it's fun. And I really like the fact that some of the buttons have 4 holes and some have 2. And they're all going in different directions. Like I'm purposely not putting them in the same direction. So anyway. So related to that is a new thing I have to show you. And it's a book that I got that has been on my wish list for a long time, and I finally just purchased it. It's called Doodle Stitching, Embroidery Art Move Beyond the Pattern with Amy Ray. And I have to admit, part of the reason that I was drawn to this book is the cover is amazing. Look at all those colors. Isn't it beautiful? That is actually a project that's in the book. So doodle stitching is kind of just what it sounds like. And, you know, part of my reason for wanting this also is that I am having fun in my drawing notebook and doing a lot of just doodling. And I've shown you, you know, examples of that before. And I'm still doing that from time to time. But I thought it might be really fun to do that. Hang on. Okay, I'm back. Emma went in the bathroom to take a shower and she didn't know I was recording, so she had her music on nice and loud. Anyway, okay, so I've been doodling and I really enjoy that, and I thought it would be really fun to combine doodling with just random stitching and embroidery. And I've seen other people do that, and I always think it looks really cool. And then I found this book, and I thought, excellent, this would be a good source of inspiration. And so I purchased the book, and it has a lot of, I think this is a good book for both beginners for stitching, as well as people who have stitching experience, like myself, and just want ideas and inspiration. So at the very beginning, it's much like many books. Oh, here, first of all, the index has photos of all the projects, which I love when they do that. But, you know, it starts out with embroidery essentials. So just like a knitting book that often has, you know, information about yarn choice and needles and things like that, you know, it starts out with those kind of basics. I'm sorry, my nose is really itchy all of a sudden. And then it goes into the projects, and there are, I'm going to say probably 22 dozen projects in here. I did not count them. And then there's variations on some of the projects. And then the back of the book has all of the templates. So you can copy the templates and, you know, transfer them to your fabric. So there's all of those. And she's got some alphabets in the back as well, which are always nice to have if you're not comfortable hand lettering your own alphabets. But I'm going to show you a couple of the projects that I think are just really, really cool. I mean, I actually think all of them are cool. I don't know that I'll make all of them, but, you know, I think they're neat. This one is really interesting. I've never done a double hoop project before, but I've seen them and I'm fascinated by them, so I would really like to do one. I don't know if it'll be this one, but I may adapt this double hoop idea to something else. So I think that one's really neat. Then there's one with scrap floss, so kind of like doing a scrappy project when you're knitting and you're using up all your little bits. She's got these projects where I have not read how she has done this particular technique. I need to do that, but I think that's so cool. So that's all done with small little scrappy bits. And here's another one. I mean, it just sort of looks like a bird's nest, to be honest, but it's really colorful and I love the texture in it. Color and texture working together just make me so happy. Here's the project that is on the cover, and that was a stitch a day journal kind of project. So I don't know over how long she did that. I haven't read that part, but bits of that were added every day, I guess, for a while. I think that's a really neat idea. I have done things like that before. I was going to do one for an entire year, and I don't think I quite made it through January. There were multiple reasons for that, but I like that idea. So, and I really like too that she is using other colors other than white fabric or natural colored fabrics. Like, I think that looks really pretty on that dark blue fabric. So that's a neat thing. She's got a couple, I mean, I'm not going to show you all of the projects. They're all really fun, but I'm just going to pick out a few here. She's got one series of different phases of the moon. And those sketches are all in the back of the book. I think it goes from new moon to full moon. So that was pretty neat. And then she's also got constellations and planets, which again, those things just make me super happy. So anyway, if you are into stitching and would like some fun ideas, this one's super cute too. This is all done with like French knots. I mean, most of it, then there's those long stitches, but I just think that French knot and having that negative space for the writing, I think that's such a neat idea. So anyway, I recommend this book if you are just looking for stitching inspiration. I think it would be great. Oh, here's one, thread painting. So you're taking a picture and then sort of recreating it in thread. So this is sort of hard to look at, but here's like one of the photos, and then here's how she recreated it in thread. And she has that tree one also on the page prior. It's a tiny picture, but you get the idea. I think it's so cool. Stitching on fabric that has a design on it already. I've seen other people do that. I've always wanted to try that and have not. I'm sorry, there's glare here on this book, but I think that's a really neat idea too. Anyway, just a whole bunch of different ideas. So I am feeling very inspired by this book, and hopefully we'll have things to show you out of this at some point. So that's my new thing this week. What else? We're going to move on to the 2021 Nature Make-Along, which is underway. We are in the third segment of this year's Nature Make-Along, which is the theme Sea, S-E-A. So it's basically anything water related. So seas, oceans, rivers, ponds, rain, puddles, anything that has to do with naturally occurring water. So if you can make it fit, then it works for the knit along or the make along. It doesn't have to be knitting. It can be knitting, it can be crochet, it could be weaving, it could be spinning, any of the fiber arts like that. It could also be plants that you find in water or near water. It could be animals that live in the water, or that you see in the water. Whatever, you make the connection. As long as you can make that connection, it's perfectly fine. So that's going on August and September, so feel free to check into the Ravelry group. The thread for that, which is linked below in the show description where the show notes are. There's also a blog post in the Fiber Nymph Dye Works website. If you are not able to access Ravelry, you can feel free to comment on that post and talk about what you're doing. I love seeing the pictures. There's not been a whole lot of chatter in there lately since we came back from the break. I'm hoping it'll pick up again sometime soon, but and I know there's been at least 1 or 2 projects already submitted. You're using the submission form, which is linked at I believe it's linked at the top of that thread on Ravelry and in the blog post. So if you have any questions about the knit along, feel free to email me at fibernymph@gmail.com. That's the best and fastest way to get a reply. You can also post it, in either of those places, and I'll be happy to reply there too. Email is just better for fast responses. Let's see. I just showed you the book, so we're ready to move into shop news. There will be a shop update this week. I mentioned it at the top of the show on Tuesday at noon. I know, weird time, but we're working with what we can do here. Noon Eastern, and that is Tuesday the 17th, I believe, of August. I will have, I have some new things that you have not seen before, so I'm going to grab those so that I can share them with you. Hang on. Okay, so first of all, You may know that I have a base called Twist, which is a non-superwash wool that is a combination of both light colored wool and a dark, like a black colored wool that is plied together, and it runs together. They're not two separate plies, but they run together and form some gray areas, and then when it's plied together you get this really fun barber poling in certain areas of the yarn. So I have that in a worsted weight, and every time I put it in the shop it flies out because people really seem to like that, which I do too. I think it's a fun yarn. I bought a small batch of it in fingering weight. They have the same base in fingering weight, and I decided to play with that and do some self-striping in the fingering weight of Twist. So that's what it'll be called, Twist Fingering. And here's what it looks like. So again, the same look to it, just in a fingering weight yarn. Now, whether you would want to use this for socks or not, that's up to you. I know some people don't have a problem using non-superwash and things that don't have nylon in it for socks. That's totally up to you, but I think it would be great for like mittens and mitts and gloves and hats and cowls, scarves. You could even incorporate it into garments. I've been seeing some really fun garments that are making use of self-striping. Shawls, there's a lot of options. Now, there are only 2 skeins of each colorway because, like I said, I only bought like 1 bag of yarn just to try it out. It was a little bit of a learning curve. I was expecting it to behave the same way the worsted weight Twist does, and it does behave a little bit differently. I found that the saturation point for the dye is much lower in the fingering weight, which is interesting because I don't usually notice that big of a difference between the superwash versions of my yarn between weights. But in this there definitely was, so I did have to rinse this a few extra times to make sure that there was not a lot of residual dye runoff. I will be adding a note in the shop listing though, just letting you know, and I do that with most of my non-superwash bases anyway, just letting you know that the first time or two that you rinse your yarn or your project made with it, you may see some coloration in your water. Not to be alarmed, it does not mean your yarn is bleeding, it just means that there's still a little bit of residual dye coming off of it. And that also varies between, how people rinse, what temperature your water is, the pH of your water. If you use a product like soak or eucalyptus or anything, so many things can affect that. But like I reskeined all of this yarn and like nothing was coming off on my hands or anything, so you can be pretty sure that it should be good to go. Anyway, this is one of the colorways I did. This is my Love Letters colorway, which yes, I created it as a Valentine's colorway, but I dye it every now and then because I just think it's a lot of fun. So that's that one. This one is one I have not done in a really long time. It's called Shadowlands. I think that's a fun purple and blue with some gray. Then we have this one, which this was a pigskin party colorway that I did a couple of years ago called Birds of Play, and it's the 5 NFL teams that have birds in their team name. The non-superwash version of this colorway turned out way more muted and lighter than the superwash version turns out. I thought that was really interesting, but there are 5 colors in there, and I will be dyeing this up on superwash yarn this coming fall because I have never put it in the shop just as a colorway after I did it for the pigskin party exclusive back a couple years ago. But if you want the non-superwash version of it, here it is on a couple of skeins. Then here is Deep Fall, so I'm starting to tease you with some fall colorways. I will be starting to put fall colorways in the shop once I'm back from this trip, if we actually get to go. So, look early September to start seeing fall colorways, and I have a new Halloween colorway that'll be coming up. Can't wait to do that one. Anyway, this is Deep Fall. This one turned out really nicely on this base. I love it. And lastly is Leaf Pile, which is a colorway I've done for several years now. But it's always a win at this time of year, so that's also 5 stripes. And also a little more muted than it shows up on superwash, but that's just the nature of non-superwash yarn. Okay, so those are the self-striping on that base. Now the other thing, I have to find it, I think it's at the bottom of the bin here. You may remember, oh, nope, that's not it. Hang on. Got to rearrange things. See, I had all of this stuff out yesterday when I recorded in a more workable order. All right, since I have this out, I'm going to show you. This was from the last update, and I just wanted to show it to you again in case you didn't get a chance to look at the short video I did. These are the 4 colorways that went up in the last update, and there are still some available. All 4 of them were new colorways. This is a firework. It's called Fireworks. It was sort of a takeoff of my old Fireworks colorway, which was called Grand Finale. This one has 6 stripes, and it's got that black stripe in there for the night sky. So, and there's one color that I swapped out from the original colorway. So it's got that bright blue instead of a red, but it's all the bright fireworky colors. So that's Fireworks. There's still some of that in the shop. More zinnias. I did have a zinnias colorway in the past, and this is a second version of it that includes green for the greenery on the flowers. So there's a 5 striper there. Then River Rocks, which you actually saw a little earlier. I showed you that I'm using for my hat project. This was inspired on our trip, our canoe trip that we took recently, and all the beautiful rocks that I picked up from the Asabo River. Just so many fun colors in that you don't expect in rocks, but there they are. Whoops, and I just dropped that one. And lastly, the other new colorway is called Bright Sea. And this one, I also did mini sets. So here's a mini set with those 5 colors, including the speckled stripe there. So those are all in the shop. If you did try to shop the last update and were not able to get the mini skeins, I did have an issue with that listing, and I didn't realize it until very late the day of the shop update. So it is fixed now. So there are mini skein sets in Bounce, Bedazzled, and Cozy, which is worsted weight. So they are still available. Anyways, okay, those are the ones from the last update. Just wanted to show you those in case you hadn't already seen those. I have to reach to the very bottom of this bin that's sitting here. Okay, here's the funny story. You might remember when I recorded last time I had said, oh, I was going to do a shop update as soon as we got back from our trip to Michigan. And I had, planned for it, and then I was obviously overly optimistic because whenever we got back from vacation, it took me a while to get back into the groove of things, and I was not going to be ready to do the shop update. And I hadn't gotten nearly as much done before I left as I thought I had. However, so then I ended up doing those 4 colorways that I just showed you, all of which were brand new, because I had decided, I don't want to do those old colorways. Well, then I opened a bin of yarn this past week because I thought I knew what was in it, and then I saw 2 batches of yarn that I had dyed prior to leaving on vacation that were some of my older summer colorways. So they were there, and I totally forgot that I had dyed them. I don't know how you forget something like that, but I did. So anyway, these will be going in the shop on Tuesday as well. So this is called Margarita Swirl. It has 2 narrow stripes. If I have a sample of it, I can show you, or something. I will put it up here. I don't remember if I have a sample of this colorway though. So there's a narrow stripe of this lime green margarita, and then a narrow stripe of this like strawberry margarita, and then the wide stripe in the middle of those 2 is a variegated stripe of like a sunset, a tropical sunset margarita. If you've ever seen those, they're really pretty. So that is Margarita Swirl. There's not a lot of this, but there's, I think, 4 skeins, like Bounce and Bedazzled maybe. So those will be in the shop. And then, irony of ironies, I had done a whole batch of my Grand Finale colorway. So this is my other Fireworks colorway. So if you want to compare, they do look very different. They have 4 of the same colors in them, but again, I swapped out the red for this bright blue in the new colorway, and then the new one has the wee black stripe in between the wider bright colored stripes. So you can have Fireworks, and then you can have Grand Finale. And I do have a bunch of that on several different bases, so those will be going into the shop. So now, beyond the self-striping, the other thing that I did dye for this update is a whole bunch of Serendipity project sets. These you may know as Serendipity sweater sets. That's what I used to call them, but I have since started calling them Serendipity project sets because they can be used for far more projects than just sweaters. And also, the yardage that's available in each of them may not be adequate for everybody's sweater size, so I don't want to pigeonhole it as definitely being a sweater set, but most of them are really pretty generous as far as sweater amounts. So they're totally mixed up in this bin, so I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to show them to you. So this part of the video may be a little bit choppy the way I have to do this, but I just want you to see all of them. The first three that I'm going to show you are on my Mountain Tweed Merino DK base. So I have DK weight ones and then I have some fingering weight ones. The DK weight ones all have 6 skeins of yarn in them. So these are one of the color sets. I don't usually really give these repeatable names because these are all one-of-a-kind sets, hence the serendipity part of it. They're non-repeatable. So there are 5 semi-solid colorways, and then each set will always have a serendipity skein, and this one is a variegated that coordinates with those other 5. Obviously, holding them like this is not the order that they will be in the shop, which will show you the progression of the colors a little bit better. But yeah, I really like this colorway. And the funny thing is I don't take notes when I dye these because I am actually dyeing all of those 5 either gradient or coordinating skeins at the same time, and I'm tweaking each one as I go to get the shades that I want. It would be impossible for me to take notes on that because I'm changing them up constantly throughout the whole process. Which the sad thing about that is then every once in a while I come up with a color that I just love and wish I could repeat, but it doesn't work out. So anyway, one of a kind. If you like it, grab it when you see it in the shop. Okay, here's the next one. These are some burgundies into reds and earthy tones. And here is the serendipity skein for this one, which is also a variegated. And the last one on Mountain Tweed Merino DK is this one, and I love this one. This one just screams late summer, fall to me, in those burnt honey, kind of rustish tinged colors. I just think this is so pretty. And this one, the serendipity skein, is a speckle. So those are the 5 on Mountain Tweed Merino DK. Okay, then I did 2 on fingering weight, which I've never done fingering weight serendipity project sets before, so this was a new thing to try, but I'm really happy with how they turned out too. They only have 5 skeins instead of 6 since the yardage is a lot bigger, and both of them I did on my bounce base, so they would have a total of like 2,000 yards. Okay, so the first fingering weight one, the first fingering weight one is this one, which is a really deep irony red that has been darkened, saddened there, if you will, and then a progression, and then the serendipity skein is also a speckled, much lighter obviously, but it's got all of those same colors and it's definitely in the same color family. So this would be a good one if you want your serendipity skein to stand out a little bit. And you can use these in so many different ways. Like I've done 2 sweaters. The 2 that I've done were worsted weight and DK weight. The first one was the ladies top down classic raglan by Jane Richmond, which I'll put a picture in here so you can see how I used the yarn there. And then the second one I did was the lineage pullover, which I did use the Mountain Tweed Merino for that one. So that's what that one looked like. But you could do so many different things. You can blend them, you can stripe them, you can fade them, you can do the slip stitch transitions. There's so many ways to use all of these. Or if you're doing like a multi-skein shawl, you can make use of them that way. I love the potential in these sets. And if I knit a whole lot of huge projects, I'd be so much more tempted to keep a lot of these for myself. But I don't. But I get to have the fun of dyeing them. The other fingering weight one is this one, which I absolutely adore this set. So there are these beautiful, just bronzed greens, going from dark to light. And here's a prime example of, oh, I wish I had the recipe for this one because I love how this color turned out. Just love it. Anyway, the Serendipity skein for this set is a very subtle variegated. So this one, the other one was high contrast. This one is very, very subtle, and it just blends in so nicely with all these other ones. It'll go so well. So those are the fingering weight ones. Now we're going to jump back to DK, but we're going to do it on a base that I've also never done these sets before, and that is my Ridgetop DK. For those of you who follow the shop, you might know Ridgetop is my custom milled DK weight non-superwash base, which is 80% Romney and 20% Falkland. I haven't been dyeing this a lot lately. I used to dye it a lot for shows because it was always a really good seller at shows, but then last year there were no shows, and so I sort of let my inventory of it run out, and I haven't really dyed it other than for special orders because I have a special order listing for it in the shop, so I do dye it for special orders occasionally. But I thought, you know what, I've got it sitting downstairs, I really ought to use it. My inventory of undyed Ridgetop is dwindling. I need to get in touch with my mill and see if I'm able to get it. I'm kind of afraid to find out what has happened to the pricing though over the course of the pandemic because so much has gone up. So hopefully it'll still be manageable and I can get a whole other shipment of it at some point in the future. But for right now, I'm going to work with what I've got and we'll see where that goes. But for the time being, I do have some Serendipity project sets that I did in Ridgetop DK. And since we're back to DK, we are back to 6 skeins in a set. So here's the first one in this really fun oceany sea kind of turquoisey blue teal, light teal I would call some of those. And there's your Serendipity skein. Now, fun fact about this is I hardly ever do speckling on non-superwash because you do not get crisp speckles. The fiber just takes it and diffuses it. And that's not usually what I'm looking for when I'm doing speckles. However, for this Serendipity skein, it worked perfectly because it did diffuse it. And so even though there's the natural color in the background, it diffused it enough that I don't think it will stand out like a sore thumb that you've got a big chunk of a natural background yarn. I think it works really nicely for that. So I was so pleased with how that turned out. So here's one of those sets. Here's another set. I was apparently on a blue kick the day I was doing these, but this is more of a denim-y blue, a gray blue into denim into a light denim, and again with a really diffused speckle skein for your Serendipity skein. And then the last one, I went to a different color family. We've got Merlot and rose and mauve kind of colors there. And another diffused speckle for your Serendipity skein. So I'm so happy with how all of these turned out. I love dyeing these sets, and I love that they're one of a kind, which means whoever purchases it has yarn that they can make something that nobody else will ever have. So that's a lot of fun. All right, the last new thing that's going in the shop are some new shawl pins that I got in. In the pictures online, I will have them actually being modeled on some knitting. I'm just going to hold them up though for you to see. So these are some shawl pins from Hiya Hiya. I've got 2 different designs. I'm just taking them out of the package. I should have done this ahead of time. 2 different designs. The one is in 2 different colors of metal, a metal finish, and the other is in 3. So the first one is a feather, and this is the brass finish. Isn't that pretty? And then the other one is in an antique finish. So there's what that one looks like. Here's the 2 together so you can tell the difference. These are really cool. These are like giant safety pins. So here's the back. And it clips like that. So you could wear it that way, which is the way the pin is, but I think you could also wear it in this direction if you preferred as well. So anyway, I just thought they were really unique. I've not really seen a lot of shawl pins that have like this big safety pin kind of closure. I thought they were neat, so I picked some up. So that's the one design, the feather. Oopsie. And then the other design is a really cute bird on a branch design which also comes in the brass finish, the antique finish, and then it also comes in sort of what it's termed light. I would call it sort of like a light pewter kind of look. Isn't that cute? I just think it's adorable. So this is the light finish, same design. This is the you know, the safety pin kind of design, which I just think is a really nifty design for a shawl pin. And then it also comes in those same other two finishes that I just showed you. I'm not going to take them out of the packages. So bronze and antique. So anyway, those will be in the shop. I've also restocked knitting needles. So if there's been something sold out that you've been looking for, that might be back in. And was there something else? Oh, I think I have more packages of the darning needles, because a lot of times I know you guys like to pick one of those up if you're trying to get to that $50 in free shipping. The darning needles are a really good purchase for that if you just need a couple of dollars. Okay, so I think that's everything going into the shop. Again, the update will be on Tuesday at noon. So thank you if you shop that. I really appreciate it. My thing is, I'll be able to get things shipped out for the rest of the week until we go away. If we go away. Still a mystery. The other thing I just wanted to remind you of is the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club. Signups are going on now. And just a real quick thumbnail about that is it's called the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club because I am doing one extra batch of yarn for each of 3 of my past most popular clubs that I have done, which was the Happy Hour Yarn and, well, I think all of these were just yarn clubs, but I'm doing this one in yarn and fiber. So Happy Hour, which was adult beverage themed, Tea for Two, which was tea themed, and the final one is Just Desserts, which were dessert themed. So there will be one shipment coming out in this club for each of those themes. So it's kind of a fun way to get like 3 clubs in one if you were not a part of those other 3, or if you were and you just want one more. There you go. There are 4 different choices of yarn and 4 different choices for fiber for the club. And again, I'm facilitating this just through a shop listing. So unlike past clubs where there's been a form to sign up and then I have to write to you and then, you know, set up your listing for you, this way you're just ordering your club membership directly through a listing and you have your confirmation immediately, just like any other purchase from the shop. So I hope you will take a look at that. I am limiting it to 30 memberships. I would say at least a third of those are gone at this point. My last club sold out in under 24 hours, and I was pretty sure this one would not, because summer, historically, clubs that I put out in summer go slower. I think just because everybody's busy and aren't really thinking about clubs. But anyway, that's better for you if you are interested, because there are still options available for you. I will be leaving that open through the end of August or until I get the 30 memberships, whichever comes first. So you can check that out in the shop. And again, if you have any questions about the club or the update for that matter, feel free to email me, fibernymph@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. When we're away on this trip, I'm not sure how much internet I will have. It should not be as bad as it was when I was canoeing, but it all depends. So but I'll do my best to answer emails if we are away. And lastly, I just wanted to mention that I as Fiber Nymph Dye Works, I'm going to be a Pro Shop sponsor for the Downseller Studio Pigskin Party again this year. That kicks off the weekend of September 10th and 11th, and I am scheduled to do my kickoff Zoom on Saturday the 10th at 10 a.m. So I will have more information about that coming up closer to that time, but I hope you will join in for that. That'll be amazing. Jen always does such a wonderful job with her knit-along events, and I'm sure this one will be no different. I do have an exclusive colorway coming for that, which I will tell you a little bit more about that coming up the next time I record, because this is a little different than anything I've done in the past, so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you too. Okay, we're going to move on to 10%, or things that are bringing me joy right now. I would say planning for this trip is sort of a joy, although it would be more of a joy if I knew for sure it was actually happening. Our trip is basically, our goal was to do a motorcycle trip to Maine and do like the coast of Maine. and then loop back around and like go up to Calais and then down to Bangor and come back home through Vermont and New Hampshire and everything. We're having a lot of trouble finding viable housing options. We were originally going to camp. Camping is just ridiculous, trying to find spots that are not like $60 a night at like private campgrounds, which I understand, you know, being the pandemic, camping has become quite a thing. So we've changed gears and we thought, okay, we'll just stay at like small motels along the way. And so I'm in the process of researching that. If we can't handle Maine, or if we can't make Maine work, I think we'll probably try to just do Vermont and New Hampshire, because there's a lot to do there too. I picked Maine just because I really like Maine, and it seemed like a rural kind of thing to do. The coast may not have been the best first choice though, so who knows? We'll see what we do. It's very much up in the air. But hopefully we'll be able to make something work so we can get away, because again, my husband's got all this vacation time he needs to take, and he needs to take vacation. Because I suggested to him, like, well, you know, we could just, like, you could take the week off and we could do day trips, and he is not at all into that. Like, I'm perfectly happy with day trips, but that's not his thing. He's like, you can do a day trip anytime. I'm like, yeah, but we never do. That's not actually true. Last Saturday, not yesterday, but last weekend, we did do a motorcycle ride on Saturday. That was fun. But other than that, yeah. So vacation, that is a happy thing, and hopefully, fingers crossed, will actually work out. Celebrating my daughter's 25th birthday coming up this week, and Bill and I are celebrating our 5th anniversary this week. Some of you have been around watching from back whenever we were getting married, and I knit my wedding skirt and all of that, and planned our beach wedding. So yeah, it's been 5 years. Can you believe it? It's hard to, it feels like it went really fast. I guess that's a good thing, because if it went slow, it'd be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're still married. It's good though. It's all good. He's a good guy. So yeah, and oh, my mom's birthday is this week too. They all like kind of fall right in a row. It's funny. So unfortunately, I'm not going to get to see her for her birthday like I thought I was, because our original trip plan was to go to Florida to visit her and her husband. But Florida being what it is right now with COVID, we decided that was not the best place to go. And she understood. As a matter of fact, they were going to go away the weekend of her birthday, and they're not doing that either. So hopefully things will settle down and we'll get to see them later this fall. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here. The garden's still going like gangbusters. I haven't actually been spending much time down in it. I probably need to go down and pick peas, because there's probably more peas to be had. Again, the weather has been very hot, very humid, and today is really the first day that we've gotten a break from that, so very thankful for that, because I don't like humidity. And, you know, we don't have a lot of really hot and humid weather here up in the mountain house, and so when we do have it, it's extra icky. So, anyway, but all in all, things are going well. It's going to be a really busy week for me. Both work-wise, and I have some personal appointments I need to deal with, and just stuff to do, and packing, and getting ready for this trip that will, again, hopefully happen. I think we're right now at sort of like the 85% sure it's going to happen point. That's better than it was like a day or two ago, where it was maybe 45% sure we were going to get to do it. So, anyway. All right, I'm going to leave you there. I have a lot of editing to do for this video because this is going to be very choppy. Apologize for that if that's annoying to you, but it was the best I could do today. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a good summer. I hope you're not having too much icky humidity where you're at, or crazy storms that are knocking out your internet. And if you're getting to take a vacation, tell me about it. I would love to know what you're doing this summer, if you are actually getting to go away, or if you're doing staycation-y stuff. Are you doing any fun crafts that you don't usually do, like my button project? Are you doing anything that you're just taking on as a whim? I would love to hear what you're doing. So please feel free to leave comments. I always love reading your comments. I try to reply to all of them, or at least give them a heart, even if I can't reply right then and there when I read it. Yeah, please comment, like and subscribe and all that good stuff. If you subscribing will always let you know whenever I do post, since I don't post on a super regular, excuse me, a super regular basis. But it's usually about twice a month with maybe one or two extra little videos thrown in occasionally. So anyway, yeah. Okay, I'm going to go. Have a great next week or two until I talk to you again, and see you soon. Bye.